Hey, Omega.
Yes.
So, what? You remember the fairy tale where we all said the sky is falling?
Yes, I believe I do.
So, would it be apropos at this point if someone did yell, the sky is falling? Because, I mean, $350 million out of your bank account in one day, wouldn't that be a little bit, wouldn't that be, you know, a little falling? And then, you know, the most over guy in the company, that you've naturally produced in the past 10 years, you know, suddenly goes out with a neck injury. Oh, and you're currently being investigated by, you know, some National Exchange Commission. Yeah. Sky's falling, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start the show.
Enough!
Alright, and so hello everybody, and welcome to episode number 117 of wooo Serious. My name is Gunner, that is Omega BR.
You see, that's why TNA is still because they have Willow's umbrella to all crouch under.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, it must have been the thing that protected him from the drug charges. Whoa. Also joining us this week is the one and only Mr. Technical Producer, Mr. Yankum DS.
I'm here, I'm not here, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Usually, I'm here though. And this time I'm here, for now.
Alright, so, let's start off with the news. WWE announced a new multi-year partnership with NBC Universal for Raw and SmackDown, with their key TV deals in the US, UK, and Thailand increasing to $200 million, suggesting they didn't double their previous deal with NBCU.
Check.
Vince McMahon commented during a Business Outlook call that the deal isn't quite what they wanted and will last less than 5 years. WWE has considered taking SmackDown live to entice potential networks, but that's not happening. The news caused WWE stock to plummet nearly 20%, and it opened at a low of $10.75, down nearly 45%. Forbes claims in all, Vince McMahon has lost roughly $842 million on paper worth since before WrestleMania, with about $360 million of that in the last few days. Investment firm Lemison Capital announced that they have taken a major stake in WWE shares and called out the board of directors to replace the current executive management team or explore the sale of the business. The company is also being investigated for possible violations of state and federal security laws by two separate firms. When I said the sky is falling, I wasn't kidding.
That's a lot of pretty rough stuff right at once. I mean, knowing Vince McMahon, I don't think he cares so much that he lost that much money. I think he cares that, what is it, Bloomington and other news websites that I can't remember the names of at the moment. I think he cares that, Huffington Post. He cares that they're reporting it, that's the thing, and that they're gonna, kind of rub it in. He makes such a big deal about being a billionaire when he really, over the years, it's fluctuated at best, but, he's typically not been. So, that's the image, that's what he's going to care about. He doesn't really care about the hard numbers, he does care about his image, probably.
just find it really interesting that they're calling for the sale of the company, or potentially, just firing the people that are executives. Do you think the McMahon family would step back to be what's best for business?
They really don't want to, obviously, but I think if it was really, really serious and they more or less had to, they might not even have a choice in the matter. You talk about all this Donald Sterling stuff and the fact that, it's not the same thing exactly, but, the idea of them forcing him out, forcing a sale. I mean, that's kind of, they don't want to give up any control, obviously, but at the same time, this is a business, and, there's only so much you can. That's what happens in business, executives get fired when things don't go right.
And then the WWE deal not getting as much as they wanted from NBCU. Do you think that speaks to the weak product of the company, or do you think that speaks to the basically the TV providers wanting to be a little more frugal?
Probably a little of both. I think that they probably that's probably why people are upset. First of all, they hyped up all of this. We're going to get 4 times our TV deal. We're such a hot commodity. This and that, and and we've talked about before these reports that came out about how even though they hyped themselves up pretty well, you consider the fact that buys are down, ratings are down. There's not a whole lot to suggest that things are super on the rise. It is a great company and everything, and a practical monopoly, but at the same time, it's obviously struggling in certain respects. So I think they kind of wanted to do it with NBCU the entire time, and they didn't super seriously think of doing it with somebody else. But then this is the deal that they got with NBC, and NBC, it's not that NBC doesn't need them necessarily, but I guess it is. NBC doesn't really need them, but it wants them, but it doesn't really need them.
I think that's true all the way around, so let's move on.
Speaking of things that you don't really need, it's said that a lot of TNA talents are contacting Ring of Honor and Jeff Jarrett over growing nervousness that no new TV deal is announced with each passing week. TNA has no future dates scheduled for Universal Studios, as it is booked until October, so they will be forced to find other arrangements on the road, which obviously is more expensive. TNA is being replaced by Ring of Honor at the Brooklyn Cyclones annual wrestling event in MCU Field this August. Currently, they only have about 33 performers signed, and the only ones with any real money deals being Jeff Hardy, Bully Ray, Abyss, Samoa Joe, James Storm, Bobby Roode, Kurt Angle, who may be on the way out, and Mr. Anderson, who signed a new deal a while back and probably agreed to pay well below what he was making before. Global Force Wrestling's first official talent search will take place June 1st in Ontario, Canada, conducted along with old TNA mainstay Scott D'Amore.
That last bit of news is really, really good because Scott D'Amore is, quite good at what he does. The Southern Ontario wrestling scene is very, very prominent. And, if you want to talk about territorial times, or you want to talk about territorial, areas, I mean, I would the East Coast, I would lump that in with the northernmost part of the East Coast. It's very active with the indies and little shindies and what have you. So that's going to be good. Oh God, TNA. But you see, this is good because TNA had double, almost triple that, a couple years ago during that Monday night fiasco. So if you want to sit here and be like, oh, it only has 33 performers signed, well, that's fine. You can do a 2-hour show with 33 performers. I mean, this gives room and time for everybody that's there to do what they need to do. But at the same time, it makes your roster looks kind of small and kind of dinky. And yeah. So anyway, how about that Ring of Honor?
I think every person counts. That's kind of the important thing, because, you know, those names I just read off, you know, those are decent big-time names. So, you know, nobody's going to say, you know, why are you wasting money on Samoa Joe, even though they've probably wasted him creatively quite a bit. But then I think, you know, and this initiative to sign new guys, it's a good initiative, but at the same time you have to sign the right new guys. It can't just be guys like Samuel Shaw, who you kind of, you know, nothing against Shaw, but he's not like a name, you know, and then they kind of stick him with this crazy guy gimmick, and it doesn't really work very well. Or you bring back somebody like Bobby Lashley, who is a name, but at the same time he's not really, because he hasn't really done very much in the last, you know, few years. And it's like, you know, is he really the guy you want to hitch your star to when there's only so many slots, there's only so much money? Is he really the guy who's going to make you more money? And, you know, personally, I think the answer is no.
I'd have to agree. I mean, Bobby Lashley's boat, you know, sailed a long time ago, you know, in 2009, basically, when he left the company. I think that he got a little too big for his britches, and the MMA stint really knocked him down a peg. But at the same time, like, I mean, Samuel Shaw as a character is interesting to an extent, except for the fact that it's the DDP character from the time that DDP was in WWE, and that's it. And then you throw a little Dexter on top of that, and that's all it really is. And while that's creepy and kind of cool, it's just mostly creepy. But yeah, I mean, I agree with TNA citing a bunch of talent, and, you know, citing the right talent. I mean, they're doing a good job of, you know, whittling people down, but the people that they have left is like, lots of WWE cast-offs. Anyways, next thing. Daniel Bryan successfully underwent neck surgery Thursday in Pittsburgh. It was a cervical foraminectomy. I can't pronounce that. Fuck that. In order to decompress the root of a nerve. Usual recovery time for heavy physical activity is 2 to 3 months, meaning a SummerSlam return is the worst case scenario. It's been noted Bryan will likely have to tone down his style and give up moves like the missile dropkick and the flying headbutt. Thank you, Bob Holly, for pointing that out. Brock Lesnar is scheduled to return at SummerSlam and appear at Night of Champions for a 2-show stint, likely because the first round of WWE Network subscriptions expire around that time. Ric Flair has a standing offer to return to television and would reportedly like to manage Dolph Ziggler. However, the company hasn't been high on him for over a year, and we would rather see him manage someone with the likes of The Miz. That statement, that sentence I just read, I really, really wanted to hurt myself. WWE must approve of all Flair's appearances anywhere that could be a problem, and that could be problematic as an overseas wrestling tour that would see Flair wrestle may be in the works. Bum, bum, bum.
And they wonder why they're losing $400 million. Really, though, first of all, good that Bryan's surgery went well, of course. It really is terrible timing, but at the same time, it's not so terrible that we don't see him again until, you know, TLC or something like that. You know, next stuff is pretty, you gotta treat that really gingerly, because, you know, it was neck problems that caused Edge to retire, it was neck problems that caused Austin to go out, it was neck problems that caused Misawa to die in the ring, basically. So, you know, you can't be treating that like a joke. But you know, it really has kind of put them in a rough spot as far as creative. And Lesnar, you know, they'll use him best they can use him, basically.
The question is, what's Lesnar going to do?
Maybe chase the title, maybe face? Well, that's actually a good question, because if it's not face to chase the title, then you kind of have to think, well, who is really an attraction for him to fight? Because you think back to his first match back, that match with Cena, which I actually saw live and I thought was pretty good, but then he lost the match. And from that point on, it wasn't that Lesnar wasn't an attraction, it was just that he almost has that Undertaker kind of sense of, well, it's a feature match just because he's in it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be great. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be, progressive for storylines. It's just the fact that he's in it, basically. And it doesn't really matter if he wins or loses. So, who could he face? I don't know. He's already faced Cena. He's already faced Triple H. If he wants, maybe if this Roman Reigns thing takes off, maybe one of them. You would say Daniel Bryan, except for, again, the whole, where's he going to be in the title and everything.
Basically, the idea would be, if you want me to fantasy book right now, the most probable opponent would either be The Shield or Cesaro. Because Cesaro is the, other Heyman guy, and we know how well, Heyman guys get along. Beyond, and Ryback's a complete anomaly in all of that. So, and then The Shield would make sense because, time to squash versus the big, Taker killer, essentially. Let's see.
This whole Flair thing, too, I feel like that's not going to work. I think Flair's going to want one thing and the company's going to want another. And Flair can't really say no because he signed with them because, in a way, he had to because, that's kind of who he is now. He needs the money and everything. But,
Right. I don't know. Flair managing Dolph Ziggler would be great, but how many managers has Dolph had? I mean, really.
Yeah, they're either gonna kind of go with him or not, and they kind of are not. So it's a bit of a rough situation. I understand why they would pick Miz because they kind of tried to force a thing on him where Miz used the figure 4 and that went nowhere. And really, that speaks to the greater problem we always talk about of they just don't really do anything with their talent below the high tier. They do stuff, but they don't put any care into it, or spirit, or long-term planning. So, speaking of long-term planning, the fact that Sting still hasn't actually signed with WWE yet suggests it is no longer an imminent decision. You remember all those weeks we said, he's basically signed, he just needs to dot his I's. Well, it hasn't happened yet, and some are worrying it's a similar situation to a few years ago when he was all set to sign, but backed off and ended up re-signing with TNA. In more positive news, Prince Devitt has come to terms with WWE and will report to developmental once his work visa clears, likely in a month or two. Kevin Steen and Willie Mack are expected to be offered deals as well from that last set of tryouts. Drake Younger is actually now working as a referee because he was told that they aren't looking for any cruiserweight types currently, but he did get offered a deal for a ref job. Scott Hall pulled out of the WrestleFest event this week, citing medical issues, and Jake Roberts noted that he's been having a tough time recently staying focused and on track. The Hall of Fame next year, the maybe list, looks like The Rock, Rikishi, Mickie James, and Kevin Nash. And just in case you were wondering about that old scoundrel CM Punk, he was in the Cubs broadcast booth to sing during the 7th inning stretch this past week, noting he's been playing a lot of NHL 94, and that he will get married next month.
And we all know who he's getting married to. Okay, a bunch of
married to the game.
Yep. Bunch of little stuff here. Okay, so Sting hasn't signing. I think he'll sign. This time he'll sign because he doesn't have much left in the tank, and he knows that, if he's going to get some sort of immortality, it's going to be outside of, it's going to be inside the ring in the WWE. So,
I think the reason he hasn't signed yet is because he kind of wants to know what he's going to do, and they don't really know because we're right after WrestleMania and we're kind of in that in between period.
Exactly. Prince Devitt coming is good. Steen and Willie Mack finally. Drake Younger working as a referee. How would you feel if you were training all your life to be a professional wrestler and then offered a referee job?
Well, it's kind of like if you want to be some fantastic actor and you get a call back for a show like How I Met Your Mother, just for an example. But the callback is for some kind of minor role that's not even really, you appear maybe once every 10 episodes, or say you get called in to be a light guy. You auditioned for, the guy's friend, and you get called in to be light guy. You're still a part of it, but it's not quite, it's kind of that old saying, it's better to be next to the spotlight than not near it at all,
Exactly. And then, what else? Scott Pulling on a WrestleFest is Scott Pulling on a WrestleFest is alright. I mean, that's not. And Roberts having a tough time. I mean, come on, it isn't like these problems suddenly went away because they got into the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, come on. Rock, Rikishi, Mickie James, and Kevin Nash into the Hall of Fame. I don't think it'll be that exact cast, but yeah, I could see that happening. And congrats, Punk. Hope you're having fun playing NHL 94.
He's just waiting till the Stanley Cup is over so he can go to all the games. And once Chicago wins, he'll come back.
Exactly. Moving on, it's said that Triple H is in an impossible position as the middleman between the talent and Vince McMahon, as Vince changes his mind frequently and gets the final say on everything. Apparently so, the referees are unhappy with their pay, as they get paid less than other talent, but have the same travel and living expenses. And although the Total Divas is renewed for a 10-episode order, it seems that EU is paying the company around $470,000 an episode, while it costs them $400,000 to make. The European tour did very well this time around, with a legitimate sellout of the O2 Arena for Raw, netting over $1.2 million at the gate, perhaps the largest in company history.
That's pretty good.
I say a profit's a profit's a profit. So if you're looking to make, $70,000 off of this show, and, I mean, that pays for something.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a matter of... Sorry, we're talking about Total Divas, so, it's a matter of, effort and all that good stuff, but it probably is a bonus at the end of the day, because they're really just filming them anyway, and, mainstream publicity, that kind of thing that they love. If even one person bought the network because... they like Total Divas for whatever reason, then, I guess it is kind of worth it, isn't it? At least they got some good news with the European tour, because I remember the last one wasn't all that great, and even this upcoming one in Japan and everything, they said advanced sales weren't very good, so they added Hogan to it. And I don't know, I think it's just a matter of whether it's economics or what, or whether people just aren't that into WWE at the moment. I don't know.
I think it's economics, and I think it's the hotness of the product. I mean, the product is heating up, and we're still, kind of bouncing around and fiddling around, and that just proves, it's wrestling's place in modern society, essentially. And, back in the early, late 90s Attitude Era, the reason why the Attitude Era was so good was because the wrestling was a little more prominent in our society. I mean, that was the feel of the age. I mean, it fit. The problem was, what should we call it? The problem at this point is the fact that, we're not in the same place that we were. The company's not in the same place that it was, and how it fits in and the popularity thereof in outside society, isn't that high. Wrestling is more of a mainstay in society now, as opposed to this emerging badass thing that used to be cool, sexy rebel and whatnot. If you want to quote that meme.
Well, look at it this way too. If you think about it, if WWE goes to Japan once a year, they probably come to my neck of the woods maybe once, maybe twice a year as well. And I don't always go for whatever reason, I mean, whether it's the money or just the travel or the hassle or whatever, or just not being that interested in the card necessarily. So, it's not necessarily like, it's their only time they're coming this year, I gotta go, or I'm gonna wait another year, or whatever. It's not necessarily like that. I think that misconception that just because they go to a foreign place that they really don't go to very often, just because they're there, people will flock to them, and that's not necessarily the case all the time.
Well, you could also take into account that NJPW is so popular these days. I mean, it's gotten very, very popular ever since the card company took over, and they've started really, really promoting that company. So if the WWE doesn't look, if the NJPW looks like small potatoes the last couple of times that they were there, and and WWE's the big deal, that's why people are going to flock to WWE. I mean, I remember the last time they did a Raw in Japan, and that was a huge freaking deal. And NJPW was in a down period at that point. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see, to see a smaller gate because of the fact that, their local wrestling or their, the home wrestling essentially is that good. Not to say that the ROH NJPW show wasn't fucking awesome. It should be done more often.
Yeah, it was. Alright, well, wrap up the news here. Over on the network, you might have noticed a lot of the old WCW themes are on the shows proper, and that's because WWE recently settled a lawsuit with producer Jimmy Papa, who had previously sued them over rights to the music. Chris Hero announced Next Level Pro Wrestling Consultation, a company to help bring talents, to the next level, using his expertise. AMC has picked up a reality series based on Billy Corgan's Resistance Pro out of Chicago for 8 episodes. And Antonio Inoki is promoting 2 state-sanctioned pro wrestling events in North Korea this year, August 30th and 31st, featuring various martial arts and touting at least 20 competitors from around the world. I remember that old Korean wrestling event that Ric Flair wrestled at some years ago.
I'd just like to take a moment to say, holy shit, Inoki is still alive.
He's the state senator in the Japanese government.
Right, but what I'm saying is he's old as fuck.
That too. This is really, really good. I'm interested to see the North Korea thing. A modern day trip to North Korea. Get Cliff Compton on that. Cliff Compton versus Great Power Uni in North Korea against Kim Jong-il or Un, when everyone's alive.
Yeah, crazy stuff. I wonder who they're gonna get.
Atlas says he wants to do it. 70-year-old Tony Atlas.
They probably let him too. Be interesting to see what that AMC show is about. How that plays out with Resistance Pro and everything.
I wonder what it's actually going to be about. Do you know? Is it going to be anything about? Is it going to be about the promotion and how it sets up, like the ICW BBC piece, or do you think that it'll be, about the people or something like that? I don't know.
I think it'll be kind of like your typical American reality show, like about a business where it's not super real, And granted, we're talking about wrestling here, but I mean, things are kind of set up, situations, that kind of thing. It's not necessarily. I mean, it's not like Resist. It is kind of funny when you watch these shows, and it's like all the drama that seems to pop up from a shop that sells cakes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I just think that it's really interesting that they decided to go with this particular, outlet. I'm definitely going to watch that for sure. And I mean, it's AMC producing it as well, so that means it's and 8 shows means that it's going to be a late summer thing, more than likely a summer, project kind of thing. So.
Yeah, the fact that it's on AMC gives me a little more hope that it won't just be your typical average TLC. Quote reality unquote show,
Yep. Alright, so that's it for the news. Ian, come on, how are we doing on time?
Well, we're going to have to go into the next half to do the 15-minute time limit because we only have 13 minutes left.
Alright, let's do that then. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back immediately, if not sooner. And we'll talk to you on the other side.
After these messages.
Indeed.